LVO Gaming here with another tournament report from the Las Vegas Open 2018, the AOS Championships. So this is the singles tournament that I attended with my friend Joe and Jeff, who was there, but he was playing 40K, and I'll forgive him for that. But I wanted to give a little bit of thought on the overall tournament, as well as a brief overview of the games, but also discuss some of the differences with LVO, the LVO tournament, and maybe other Age of Sigmar tournaments that I've seen and been a part of, and you know, just the overall vibe and explaining it all. So let's get into it. I mean, so the Age of Sigmar singles tournament was actually very well attended. I'd say this is the largest tournament I've been to for Age of Sigmar. 95 people showed up and played, and that's great. You know, 95 people playing Age of Sigmar. I mean, yeah, you're looking across and there's like 540k players, but you know, growth doesn't happen overnight, and it's great to see such a competitive scene come out, right? So, very good tournament and very good turnout. Couple things to note about the tournament. I would say one of the things that jumps out at you is really, we played 7 rounds in 2 days. So that's 4 rounds, 4 games in 1 day, and 3 games on the second day. And coming as a 40k player, you know, if you told me I had to do 4 rounds in 1 day, I would say, okay, great. Where can you lie me down, because I'll be dead very soon thereafter, right? So, but surprisingly, all of my games finished on time. They finished naturally and within all the rounds. All 4, I was definitely tired, but you know, I got 4 games in and I was tired. So if I was playing 40k 3 games in, I'd be beat. So I can't say that it wasn't challenging, but it was also a heck of a lot of fun to play that much Age of Sigmar. One of the big differences in terms of format had to do with the way that secondaries were handled, right? So you have this case of your primary missions, which weren't as different as the doubles. The doubles, you know, when I discussed it, they're very different, right? Like, these are not missions you would ever see in the rulebook, like they're not close to it. But in the singles, they were very close to the General's Handbook. I mean, you saw Star Strike, you saw Knife to the Heart, you saw Scorched Earth. Those are all the things that you expect to see, right, in an Age of Sigmar tournament. And but the key difference there is the secondary missions. Now, what they had was a stack of cards. Every player got a stack of cards, the exact same stack of cards, and they were your secondary missions. Each were unique. So you actually had to mark what round you used it in, because you could not use it again for the rest of the tournament. And you had to keep it secret at the top of the game. And what happened is there are 2 conditions on it, a 4-point condition and a 6-point condition. If you got the first one, you got 4 points, and if you got the second one, you got the full 6 points, so it's worth 6 maximum, right? But what happens is, once you get the first condition, you have to reveal it to your opponent, and then therefore they have the opportunity to try to kind of prevent you from getting those additional 2 points for the secondary. But for the first one, they could be anything. It could be 1 out of 15 different cards. So it allows you to kind of customize how you play relative to, well, A, your army, and B, their army, right? So, I mean, there's a secondary mission where you have to cause them to lose 2 models to Battle Shock. It's like, okay, well, if I'm playing Vanguard Wing, I mean, there's a lot of Liberators, but am I gonna cause 2 models to Battle Shock? Especially when they're always going to Inspiring Presence at 1 big unit and everything else is tiny. Probably not. So I would never use that secondary mission card against that type of army, right? And so that it's a very interesting mechanic, because it was worth a lot. So the primary missions were worth about 7 points, and the secondaries are worth 6, right? So there was also bonus objectives, and those also varied by game. You couldn't choose those. I mean, you chose them in a way in that, like, if it was assassinate, and you picked this character over that character, you chose that. But the fact that you had to assassinate, that wasn't something you could choose, right? So that was the general format for the Age of Sigmar tournament, and it was very interesting, I'd say. And I would also say that it was very successful. I mean, I talked to a lot of guys. You know, some great Canadians out in Calgary, Dean and Jeff, and you know, some guys out of Quebec, and then also a lot of Americans. Obviously, they were really cool. I mean, Ed was really cool with me, and I think a couple of guys out of England were there, and I think Mike and David Rogers I played against. He was really cool. So everybody I played with was really cool. I'd say, you know, a lot of Americans that I saw. Joe Cryer was there. He's out of I think Minneapolis or something. He seemed alright. I mean, I don't know. He's a little aloof, but you know, otherwise he seems fine. A lot of them were kind of California guys. You know, I don't know if I call them local, but to me they're local, coming out from Toronto. But you know, so they'd say like, oh yeah, I'm from San Diego, and it's like, well, I have no context for where San Diego is relative to California or Las Vegas. I mean, Southern California. That's as much as I know. I've never been, so I can't say how far away that is exactly. Yeah, so it was an interesting crowd, very nice, very friendly, but competitive. You know, you saw a good number of Magakin, so I'll talk a little bit about the meta. A lot of Magakin was there. They're the new hotness, you know, and you saw different types of Magakin, right? So you saw like a bunch of Grid and Cleans with Rodigus, right? And then the guy I played, Ed, he played, I think that's a beautiful army. I mean, it's so cool, and he painted it very well. And you know, he's using Plague Monks, and he's got a Glotkin, and he's got Harbinger of Death, and he's got you know, a lot of Blight Kings, and whew, once all that stuff gets into you, it's scary. You know, and I have the benefit of being not having to worry about the debuffs, right? Because I've also have the neural keyword, but you know, the problem is for me, him having the neural keyword makes my stuff. I trade my play call catapults for little slingshots apparently, because they don't do bupkis, right? So, anyways, the crowd was cool but competitive, right? I mean, Disciples of Tzeentch was definitely well represented. Blades of Khorne was definitely well represented. Tzeentch more so than Blades of Khorne. Definitely Vanguard Wing. I mean, Joe Duca, you know, a friend of the show, a friend of mine, he's running Stormcast Eternal Vanguard Wing, because I basically pestered him to say, if you're gonna start Age of Sigmar, I think that the army for you to play is Vanguard Wing, Libby Bomb. I just kept on saying, I kept on shouting at him, Libby Bomb, just do it, because you'll like it, and it's good. And I think I was vindicated in that because number one, he plays excellent. He plays 20th. You know, I place 36th, which I'm ecstatic about, honestly, because Skaven Pestilence is not mid-tier. I'd be happy with mid-tier with Skaven Pestilence army, but to finish, you know, upper mid-tier, 36 out of 95, pretty good. Also, I had this undeclared rivalry with John Fearhelm, which he's claimed top spot of Skaven Pestilence all year. And I think he dropped out after round 2. Him and his wife both dropped out. So he ended up at like 93rd or something like that, 92. You know, in my own kind of petty way, I was like, aha! The real champ of the Skaven Pestilence is here. You know, I'm number 2 in the 2017 ITC. And in the head-to-head tournament, guess who came out way ahead? But you know, he also dropped out, and who knows how he would have. And also, I don't know the guy, so I mean, but I'm gonna claim credit for that, no matter what. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my overall thoughts on it, right? Cool crowd, definitely cool vibe. A lot of Age of Sigmar playing. The top armories were there. People were there to win. But, you know, I think it was still overall a very friendly event in terms of, you know, people not Tonying each other, as far as I know. You know, I don't think the Age of Sigmar side has that issue at this point. Maybe it will down the road. But yeah, so let's get into my games. You know, my first game up was against this mixed order army. It's very strange. I mean, the thing about it is that, you know, knife to the heart. I think it was knife to the heart. Anyways, one objective on each corner. And I made the biggest mistake ever. The stupidest mistake, right? And, you know, I say, if you're playing Age of Sigmar and you say the words, I really need to win the initiative to win this game. You've done messed up. That's bad news for you because I found myself saying that in turn 3. At the end of in turn 3, if you have both objectives, you win, right? And stupidly, I had like pushed up all my monks, right? Like I'm just gonna go aggressive because that's how I play my army. And I left a couple like catapults back to like guard the quote unquote guard the objective. It just was really they're just sitting on it, right? And but he had moved his I don't know. There's this unit of like Stormcast dudes that come off the edge, like outflank, and I think he failed his charge with his unit, and I was like, okay, great. But then for some reason, turn 2, I'm like, oh, okay, great. I'll just hang around. I didn't move like my 40 plague monks back to get on top of the objective, so that way I could like hold it over my 40 dudes compared to his like 10 guys, and so we I think we both realized it, and we ended turn 2, and I'm just like, oh god, if I lose this initiative roll, I'm screwed. Like I was gonna auto lose this game, and I feel like I was like taking him out because his list was like not really optimized, and I was doing lots of damage with my play call catapults against his like his army, basically, like his white lions, and 20 white lions standing in the middle of the field saying, come get me, Clan Pestilence, not gonna end well, So anyways, I did win the roll, got back, was able to just keep mopping things up, and I won that game, right? So the second game was against Ed. I think he was from the team Skull Caddies. He was super cool. I mean, he actually got a buy, right? And he's running a Magakin, and they had that list that I was speaking of, and whew, let's just say I got stomped. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That list is rough. Blight Kings, they are quick when you combine all the buffs and stuff like that together, and also they just hit like a ton of bricks, right? And also, monks buffed up with the Glotkin and all of this stuff, they're as scary as they are with my army. They're way scarier as Magakin. So I'm not gonna pretend like my Skaven Pestilence won't become Magakin, but they may become Magakin. I don't know. I'm probably just gonna keep them Skaven Pestilence. I like being the only Skaven Pestilence guy, but I can imagine a lot of Skaven Pestilence players moving over to Magakin because they're just really great. So yeah, definitely took a big loss on that one. The third game I played against was a Crocnado. Now, I'll tell you one thing. What's funny at the tournament was there's a lot of Anger Wing and a lot of Disciples of Zeech, right? But there's a lot of acceptance of that. It's like, yeah, going up against Skyfires. GG, it's fine. Or I'm going up against the Vanguard Wing. Alright, gonna have to brace myself. But, people kind of like know that that's out there and they're gonna deal with it. And, they either built their list to deal with it or they've built certain coping mechanisms for it, right? But there's one list that to a man, there's like just a hatred of, and that's Crocnado. Like Lord Croak on a freaking Balewind, it's like a badge of honor, right? He said, like, I killed Lord Croak on that freaking Balewind Vortex. It's like, that's a cause for high fives, right? And that's what I played against, right? Like he played a bunch of skinks, Lord Croak, a Slan, which was to me was crazy. I'm like, that's a lot of points. And he had a Bastillon, he had a Stag, so he had a lot of big boys, right? And a lot of big magic casters. And in that game, it was crazy. I mean, I was racking up the primary points, and I was just praying that like this freaking Croak, who was in the middle of my army, right? He teleported over and popped the Bellwind, and he never got it off the whole game. 3 turns, the first 2 turns that he had it, I was able to dispel it with my Vermalor Corruptor. It's amazing, right? That, like, when does that happen? And then the 3rd turn, he failed. So I was like, I'm just the luckiest guy in the world, because like that stupid spell. I hate it so much. And by the time the 4th turn came around, my play call catapults were finally able to put the beating that it deserved on him, because I had like withered him, and I tried to do whatever I could to him to like chip him down, and so I was able to kill him in turn 4. I never got the full wrath of Lord Croak, but I got the full satisfaction of killing Croak. So in that game, I took that win pretty big. The fourth game, which is the last game of the day, I played against Tyler. He's from Weasley Dragons, another club from the West Coast. He was playing Cardinal Overlords, and he has this crazy, I would say almost too many eggs in one basket. Literally, the basket is an ironclad, right? Like a giant ship, right? And he has one unit that's like of 10 dudes that are out, and everything else goes in the ship. And so in that game, you have like 4 objectives just evenly spread out, and but it's in that real shit like deployment zone where it's like it's like a staircase kind of like thing. And so I said, okay, I don't know, I'm just gonna get like blasted. I've played against Bassam, and that's a game that I learned a lot about Card on Overlords. Was that okay? You know what? They're gonna be wherever they are. They're gonna blast whatever they're gonna blast. But I need to get out there and get points. That's all I did. So I let him. I didn't let him, but like I knew like, okay, he's just gonna come in and like from wherever and just shoot me to death. It's fine, right? My benefit was he came in from behind, which I left a huge space for, and he blasted he killed my general, which is like bad news generally. And he took out all my political catapults. I was like, okay, fine. But the thing is that he's hemmed in behind all these rats, and I just said, fine, okay, I'm just gonna run up and like grab the objective that's in front of me, the objective that's in the top corner. This unit that's down here is gonna be chilling, get this one, and then I got like a blob of 40 and a Vermin Lord going up on the complete opposites corner to get that point and go after the one unit that's holding on to that other point. So because of that, it didn't matter what he did to my army. He basically killed my entire army by the end of the game. And Joe and Jeff, they had come by and they're like, oh my god, we's getting killed by this card. Like there's nothing on the table. And they, from their perspective, they're right. Like all my stuff's dying, right? But what I was saying is that like, I mean, he's gonna need like 4 extra turns just to catch up to my points, right? Like it's impossible. And I already got my secondary on him, so I've got this game like locked up. But from their perspective, they're just like, oh, this looks real bad. It was like turn 4, so there's like a turn left, and a lot of my stuff died. But I mean, it's cool. Like the thing is that his army comes in, blasts something to death, like just like nuclear bomb, like A-bombs it right out of the sky, and then I was like, well, that's fine. I got a jillion bodies just running around the table, and that's something I learned when I played against Bassam. Was that he's all the way in this corner, but my Vermin Lord Corruptor flanks the other way and then just grabs objectives and like does stuff because he's so fast, and what are you gonna do? Nothing, right? Like, so because there's nothing there. So that was game 4. Game 5 was against a Vanguard wing from Michael, I believe, out of England. He was borrowing a friend's army, and he taught me some things, because let's just say that Joe plays Vanguard wing, but he doesn't know the tricks of Vanguard wing. And neither did I, because, I mean, honestly, I haven't played against Vanguard wing that much. I just know of the Vanguard wing. And he showed me some things, and those things were scary and painful. And, one thing that he showed me, which was, I was like, I couldn't even believe this is the case. I had screened with my monks, like this, right? And what he did was he put a Liberator on the top and then a Liberator on the other side. I was like, you can do that? And he's like, yeah, I mean, I'm within 1 inch, aren't I? I'm like, yes. He's like, well, then it's fine. Like, the fact that you can, like, come down and be in base to base with me, and it doesn't count as charging, so you get the bonus for that as well, that was nuts. And I was just completely flabbergasted. I also felt a little bit like, it's not cool, because he did it like threading the needle between my units, like splitting it. But there was only a gap because I said, like, listen, I understand it's difficult to see which unit I have for monks. They all look the same. So I leave a gap and I put like a little measuring stick indicator there, just that way, like right between this line, that's where the units are. But then he just moved the stick out of the way. He's like, oh, see, there's lots of space for Liberator. I'm like, I mean, there is. And then he just placed him down. I was like, now he's in contact with the wolf unit. It's like, oh, God. Awful. So, let's just say needless that I lost the game. It was no good. No good. So then I had the fun of going from that game to another Stormcast Eternal Vanguard wing. But this was against David Rogers. And he's a very smart guy. He plays a totally different style of Vanguard wing, which I never even heard of. But it's basically the unkillable Vanguard wing. And one of the things that was very interesting with that game is that he decided that killing me was more dangerous to him than letting me just attack him and then he not fight. Because what he discovered was that when you kill me and I roll a 6, I do mortar wounds to him. And mortar wounds are the worst thing for him. So he's like, I'm not even going to swing at you. I'm just going to like do my movement shenanigans and burn down your objectives, because we were playing Scorched Earth at the time. And I'm like, well, makes sense. And in that game, that's the game that I kind of messed up on. Once again, LVO, lots of mess ups on my end. Because my secondary was to pass the plague, right? I have a unit that had the plague and I needed to pass it on to a unit. And he needed to grab a flag. So I discovered this like super late in the game. I was like, oh my God. And rightfully so. He said like, listen, I can't like let you take that back, even though theoretically you could have passed the plague on to me tons of times. I'm like, totally right. I mean, them's the rules, right? I wouldn't call that a Tonying, right? Like that's just like literally that was turns ago. So that's not even like a little bit comparable. So what he needed to do for his secondary was he needed to get a banner off of me. And the problem and the reason why I knew that he needed to get a banner off of me is because I killed an icon. And he's like, oh great, I got this one where you need to kill a banner. I'm like, well, an icon's not a banner. I actually have a plague banner, right? It's got a banner on him. So I have a banner and an icon. It's one of the few units in Age of Sigmar that can have both, right? And he's like, let me check. I was like, yeah, you're right. So what I said to him was like near the end of the game, like because there was only one turn left, and I said, let's just say for the sake of argument, I tried to fight you, and in doing so, I don't do any wounds because you're unkillable, and then you kill a guy on my end, so I pass you the plague, and that will give me my my first level for my secondary, and you kill my guy, and I, happen to choose the banner guy, who was like, incidentally, like just, 1 out of a million dudes, and he's like, that could make sense. And I said, I mean, you're already winning in the primary. We're just trying to see how we can get secondaries here. And so that's the kind of non-agreement we had, in terms of, because it just happened that we both knew what we needed to get, and there was kind of a win-win there, right? Anyways, I mean, we're talking about mid-tables here. It's not like we're talking about the top tables, but I thought that was interesting that we kind of both ended up in that situation. And then the last game was against my old favorite, Disciples of Tzeentch. And I thought, whew, I got 6 rounds. I didn't have to face a Tzeentch once. I was like, I'm a lucky guy. And no, I got to face the Disciples of Tzeentch, but one without Skyfires. Interesting, because it was a change host, but a change host that had 20 Zangors. Now, what's interesting is that his army is beautifully painted, so that's why he took the Zangors, because he's like, listen, these pains in the butt, Zangors, I'm going to use them, because they were such a pain in the butt, I need to justify it. I got to go to LVO and use them. And I'm like, can't disrespect. He's actually a guy out of Vancouver, so totally cool guy. And the one thing is that I've played against Curtis. He's one of the hosts of the Drunken Dreadnoughts, that podcast that I've been on. Curtis Clouet, and those Zangors. I learned to fear. I learned to really have the fear of Zangors in me, right? And he doesn't run Change Host, right? So he had Change Host, Changeling, and 20 Zangors, and so So number one, I'm like, okay, number one, this changeling has to be dealt with. So I said, what are the rules behind changeling? He's like, well, I move it like my own, but it doesn't get detected. You can't shoot it or target or anything like that. I'm like, but does it have the fly keyword? Can it fly? It's like, no. So I was like, okay, so if I move like 4 models around this thing, it can't go anywhere, right? He's like, no. I was like, okay. He's like, yeah, you basically, that's all you have to do to deal with the changeling. If you have first turn, just deploy around it, and then just, I can't move, and whatever I move into it, it will be in close combat. I don't know if I want to do that. I'm like, yeah, that's fine with me. And so my first turn was like, okay, I just need to pelt these Zangors to death. And I knew that he didn't have Inspiring Presence on them at that point because I was going first. And so I went, all right, cool. +1 to hit because you're over 10, so that's 20 dudes. I was like, all right, 2d6 damage because that's what Plague Claw Catapults do. And I was like, all right, first roll, 9. Solid. I like it. Took him down a little peg. Took out like 4 models that way. All right. Boom. Second one. Like 12 damage or something like that. He does end up saving a couple, so he has like 11 left. But like he lost 9 Zangors off the first 2 hits and wounds off of these Plague Claw Catapults. Couldn't be happier with the results of Plague Claw Catapults. Anyways, the third Plague Claw Catapult hits, bam, another 11 damage, right? Because he was still over 10 technically. So he's down to like 6 or 5 of these guys after the first round of shooting. Just completely guts that unit and like starts to he battle shocks a couple off. And because he rolls, he only had 1/1 on his Destiny dice, so he picked that 1/1 in order to mitigate the losses on that. And so from there it was like down. It was even further downhill. Like he changed host. I mean, like I have the tools to deal with it. I think, right? Like he had a Gaunt Summoner, but it was like super duper far away, and I was like, you know, the game wasn't near the Gaunt Summoner basically, right? And because the Star Strike, it just happened to not be near him, and you know, I just have my Verminlord Corruptor against a bunch of Brimstones and the freaking Gaunt Summoner. What's a Gaunt Summoner gonna do against Verminlord? Nothing. And it doesn't need to fight, but it's there to dispel. That's all it's there for, right? And you know, 40 Plague Monks going up against like 10 Pink Horrors, then like Pink Horrors are gonna like just melt to not stabby knives, right? So things like that. That was definitely a very a game that was geared towards me winning, not because of like his list per se, but because the rolls I had were amazing. Like to do 32 damage to a Zangor unit in 1 round of shooting in the first turn, and he doesn't have Inspiring Presence on them. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better result, right? So, there's the one last thing that it reminds me of is that very important difference in this was that all the the terrain rules were in effect, right? So, in fact, I really learned to love mystical terrain because rerolling ones, for me, so worth it. It's just like, yeah, a 6 they could go stupid, or a 1 or whatever, it can go stupid. That unit can go stupid, but rerolling though, I'll take it. It's a big deal for my very limited number of shots. I need any sort of edge I can in terms of really getting that off. So I really appreciate it. I mean, it does change the game a lot. It actually makes a difference, and I don't think it's actually that big of a hurdle to really implement it in games. So I would definitely advocate for using those terrain rules more, because it does change things up for sure. Especially when the presentation of the terrain is good, but it's a little kind of like standard. You know, you need things a little bit more to mix it up, right? So. Yeah, so that's basically it for my LVO tournament report. This video is gonna go up hopefully before this weekend's event. I'm also going to this weekend, the end of February. I'll be at the Berry Bash, so playing Warhammer 40k. And what will I be taking? Even I don't know. And it's gonna be some sort of weird mishmash of things. I don't know, borrowed stuff probably. Yeah, it's fine. But I am going to have very good coverage of it. I'm hoping. I mean, I'm hoping that you're seeing the improvements in the channel and that you're seeing that things are getting better. and I'm trying new things out, and you know, we'll see how things go. And until next time, hasta la vista.